In this project, we will be discussing personal relationships in the movie Lars and the Real Girl. For the sake of this project, we will be specifically focusing on the relationship between Lars and his brother Gus. In our book, Communications in Our Lives, Wood describes personal relationships as unique commitments between irreplaceable individuals who are influenced by rules, relational dialectics, and surrounding contexts. We will be using the definition throughout this presentation in order to dissect the growing and changing relationships between Gus and Lars. Before we discuss the different aspects of the relationship, we want to give some context of the relationship. In the beginning of the movie, we are introduced to the brothers and their distant relationship. They do not seem to speak to each other unless they are forced to, creating an awkward tension between the two and for the audience. We learn later in the movie that this is due to the lack of relationship the two had as children. Their mother died when she gave birth to Lars, and because of this, their father became a miserable, antisocial wreck, leaving for the little building of the relationship between the children and their father. Gus, being the older child, left as soon as he could in order to get away from the toxic household, leaving Lars to fend for himself and ultimately making him become more antisocial than his father ever was. This shows the unique and irreplaceable aspects of the relationship, because nobody else could have shaped the relationship due to their childhood upbringing. Family members are very influential, and in this case, shape Lars' entire personality. Wood defines commitment as a decision to remain within a relationship. The commitment aspect of a relationship is apparent because through Gus and Lars' relationship is strained, it is not severed. Lars lives in the garage while Karen and Gus live in the house, and Gus still feels somewhat of a responsibility for Lars. He consciously decides to keep their relationship and attempt to mend it through his commitment.
Wood also talks about the rules of the relationship and how each relationship has regulative rules. Regulative rules influence interaction by specifying when and with whom to engage in various kinds of communication. The rules of this relationship are to speak minimally, not to discuss the past. For example, we can see in the first dinner scene the lack of speaking and eye contact between Lars and Gus. Throughout the movie, we can see the tension begin to dissipate as the relationship grows closer. In the beginning, we see little mention of past problems or their familial relationships. Again, as the movie progresses, we see slightly more of a discussion between the two and their family. Wood also says that relationships are affected by contexts and are not isolated from the social world. This is specifically shown when we see Gus telling his coworkers about Lars in his current state. Gus is validating the relationship here, and by sharing Lars' problems with people he is friends with, it shows their relationship is growing and becoming stronger. This is also shown through other community members coming together to help Lars, making Gus realize he needs to be there for his brother. The final part of relationships discussed by Wood is relational dialectics, which are opposing and continuous tensions that are normal in personal relationships. The tension in the relationship between Gus and Lars is obviously evident, but one of the most prevalent is the openness and closedness aspect in the relationship and a desire for privacy. Clearly, Lars is depicted as a very private person who doesn't have much of a relationship with the outside world. Yet, when he discovers Bianca, he begins to open up emotionally to his brother. The closedness is also apparent in the relationship between the two and their inability to speak to each other openly. Gus brings up his worry in the dinner scene by saying, "Karen is worried about you," rather than stating his own emotions. We see the relationship begin to open up toward the end of the basement scene, when Lars is asking Gus advice on when he thinks he became a man. Gus then tells him how his experiences shaped him and apologizes for he had left Lars to fend for himself. Throughout the movie, we can see Lars and Gus's relationship mend and grow to a more open and brother-like relationship.